You're in the Business Insurance Zone with me, Steve Savant, national insurance columnist and financial color commentator. And all this week, our series on marketing to the fiduciary community. And on today's Biz Show, reviewing proposals, rates of return, and expense reports with CPA Ken Davis.
When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.
Well, welcome everyone to the Business Insurance Zone. I am your host, Steve Savant, and we're broadcasting to a nationwide audience of financial advisors right here in Fountain Hills, Arizona, home of America's largest fountain. And with me, day 5, our fiduciary par excellence, CLU, CHFC, CFP, and CPA, Ken Davis.
Hey, Stephen.
Ken, you're kind of we're kind of splitting the zone here because we're really in life insurance, annuity, disability, long-term care land, and we're talking all the issues that would make the fiduciary, CPAs, attorneys, enrolled agents to the IRS, trust officers, really be endeared to us because we're bringing quality information that is exactly what they want to see in a presentation. Objective, detailed, or I like your other word the other day, the minutia, right? I love that. I bet you my spell checker would just kill that issue, I have to say. But let's get to it because what we're talking about today, and again, remember, you can get not only the 5-part series, this whole week's shows, and Ken's, I think the thing's like 4,500 words. I mean, it's a white paper and a half on how to market to the fiduciaries. And you can get that and all the giveaways on the show all this week, and there's a ton. Go out to our landing page, www.brokersalliance.com/gatekeepers. And the reason we're using gatekeepers again is because gatekeepers, these are the people that are gatekeeping. We got to get past these people first, and I have information and strategic and tactical ways to gain access to the fiduciary market. Now,
but visualize for a minute that whole concept of the gatekeeper standing at the castle protecting their client. What happens once you get past the gatekeepers? Well, then it's a harmonious situation. Now you're accepted, you're part of the group, and you have access to people and you're talking to them. And that's part of it, is once you show that you're sincere, that you care about the client, and you win over their confidence, then everything opens up, and then it's a much more collegial type of a situation. So gatekeepers up front, but if you do your job, you can change that whole relationship.
All the information we're talking about all this week is excellent material that they will get and understand and appreciate.
Right.
Let's talk about some of the things about proposals. Now, let me tell you something. Proposals, back in the day when I first started, 6-7 pages, maybe that was fine. Disclaimers, caveats, disclosure, what was that? Yeah. Right? I mean, all that has changed. And when you do get a proposal today, the numbers, which is the very thing you want to promote, is buried about halfway through. So you got to get through all the disclaimers and the minutia. And I got to tell you, we're going to be having David Sterling on here in a couple weeks. If you think you got E&O problems now, wait till you hear David. I mean, wow. But let's talk about proposals. I look at this, and one of the things Ken and I have figured out, and it's a big, big discovery. Talk about why, and we're going to split it into 2 sections here. I want to talk specifically now, internal rate of return on death benefit, internal rate of return on cash value, and why you demand that, Ken, as a CPA.
Well, when these illustrations go in front of a CPA or any other type of fiduciary, they're going to be very skeptical. They see this as a sales tool, which to a large degree it is. And they're going to, you show them all these numbers, the numbers going out, numbers coming in, and you get these massive numbers at the end and all this income, and they're going, so what? Right? I mean, the numbers are huge. Why are they saying so what? Because they have no way to compare it to other alternatives. In their mind, it says, well, is this the best use of the money? Is the life insurance policy on an after-tax basis the best use of this money, or wouldn't I be better off in stocks, right? Buy term, invest, the difference is their knee-jerk reaction, right? Well, when you pull out and check that little box on the illustration software and get the internal rate of return columns, now you're showing them in detail, in numbers, what the actual returns are so that they can then compare them to alternatives. So what I do when I sit down with cash value policies, when I'm trying to accumulate cash in front of an advisor, a fiduciary, a gatekeeper, I always have internal rate of return because I just tell them, look, I doubt if you would believe that we can build up reasonable cash value in a life policy because the costs of commissions, the other costs, et cetera, you probably don't believe it. And they look at me and go, yeah, you're right. And I said, well, that's why I did internal rates of return, to show you that when I designed this, we designed it to be economic. And then you have to give them reasons why yours is better. I'll say to them, look, I dialed down the commission. I put some non-commissionable term insurance in here, putting more cash in the pockets of the client. That's why these numbers sing. Well, I'm showing them evidence that what I'm saying is true, and I've told them how I got there so that they can believe that it's real. And the final piece is the assumed credited rates of return. You need to talk about that as well.
The story I'm going to tell you now, it sounds unbelievable, but I won a case based on the LEIRR, the IRR, the internal rate of return at life expectancy. What I did was I took the 2001 CSO, where the product was built upon, but I also took the Society of Actuaries 2008 VBT tables, relative risk tables, and I looked at the numbers and I did my IRR based on what I thought was going to be much more the reality, which was, in this case, the 2008 VBT relative risk tables rather than the 2001, because it's kind of old and antiquated already. I looked at that number and I saw the internal rate of return, because the client was going to live way past what my competitor said. So when I did the IRR on their policy, which we just happened to sell, as well as the one that I was promoting, I said, here's where the mark is based on what they projected, which we believe is inaccurate. We believe the life expectancy will be X, and we showed that. IRR on death benefit, and I cannot believe, how can you win a $92,000 target premium case on the minutia of talking about the difference to a fiduciary between the 2001 CSO and the 2008 BBT?
You just out-geeked me.
I got to tell you, I've lived to see the day when stuff like that really matters. Well, don't forget, you can watch this show and all our shows on our on-demand video section right on our homepage at www.brokersalliance.com. Yeah, think about that. Well, that's the Buzz on the Biz for today. You've been in the zone, the business insurance zone.
You're listening to the insurance industry's #1 resource for products, planning ideas, carrier information, and interviews you can use. When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.
Companies in our business are always touting service, products, and underwriting, and we do that too. But here's the difference. Now enter the world of the elite producer with a value package that cuts us out of the pack, a BD that approves social media marketing of non-FINRA products and doesn't take an override. With the best competition desk in the industry, and for our loyal producers, a true group health plan. No one offers that. Brokers Alliance does.
Well, welcome back to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm Steve Savant here with Ken Davis, and we're talking about internal rate of return on policies, and we stayed more on the death benefit side of this equation. Get ready for all hell to break loose, because Ken and I are going to talk about internal rate of return during the accumulation phase and internal rate of return during distributions. And I have to say, Ken, I'm trying to control myself because of the short time, but when we look at this is a modeling that we have now got down. And you should be showing, especially again, CPAs really enjoy this. They want to see the internal return on cash accumulation. But then I got to find out what the difference is when I move to distributions, because that's where the games on illustrations are played.
Right.
Let's talk about a little bit about policy loans during this time, Ken, all the different types there are and how it really messes with internal rate of return.
Well, as you know, Steve, that there are variable rate loans, there are arbitrage types of loans. You know, in the past, when we went to a loan, we had to go to a guaranteed fixed interest rate on the loan and the collateral that washed each other out. Now we're able to, with indexed life, participate in the indexing strategies on the collateral portion, and then offset that against the cost of the loan, which may be fixed or variable. And of course, if somebody wants to make a point, they're going to use the arbitrage and make it look great, but we don't know that's true. That's using a leveraged concept, and we know leverage is a double-bladed sword. It can be wonderful on the upside and kill you on the downside. And so when we present to the CPAs, somebody else might have done the arbitrage, say, hey, did you know that's an arbitrage? Did you know this can go against you? Did they talk about that? And of course they didn't.
No.
They said, okay, we've done both. We've shown the arbitrage and we've shown, you know, the more conservative. And then you can talk about different policies with different guaranteed fixed rates and variable, and there's all kinds of detail there.
Well, here we go. Here it comes. or on a case, it's an income case, it's about $54,000 of target annual premium putting in a non-qualified retirement scenario. My competitor showed the 30-year look-back rate, which was 8.3. Now, I have no problem with 8.3 or the look-back rate, except for the fact that I'm in front of a fiduciary now. So I showed 3 proposals on the same contract. I showed the look-back rate, which I told him I thought was pretty aggressive. I showed him the midpoint rate, which I call the construction rate. How was this policy constructed? Generally, indexing, as our example here, is about 200 basis points over whatever the current interest rate market is. So if the current interest rate at 4.75, which it is right now, about the lead current rate in insurance, I'm going to be at 6.75, saying that's what it was designed to do. Then I took the 2 tranches on the Monte Carlo, the 2 20-year tranches, and that was down at 5.5. So I showed the low end, very predictable, very historical. Remember, again, it doesn't mean it's going to be the truth in the future, but I tried to lay out actual argument here. Here's the 5.5, which I thought was very, very conservative and historical. 6.75, it was built to do this. And then I showed, well, the company's still showing the look-back rate.
And I wanted to jump in. One of the reasons why that's so effective with fiduciaries, we tend to look at the upside and the sizzle and the pizzazz and all that stuff. These people are conservative and they don't believe that stuff. And so when you come in doing your dance and doing the flash, it's like, oh gosh, please don't do that to me, right? If you show them that lower end, the fact is, even those numbers at the lower end, when you do an apples for apples comparison against like kind risk assets, our numbers look really good because of the tax law and stuff like that. So don't be afraid to show that and just say to them things like, I would rather understate than overstate. I said, could it happen? Did it happen historically? Yes. The 8.3 is reasonable. However, let's not show, push that. Let's push maybe that 6.75 or even the 5.5 and show that even in those circumstances, we have a really good product. I think sometimes we want to show more because we think that's how we're going to win. With fiduciaries, you have to back off and be more conservative.
Can we show more? Because all the competitors are doing it. What I'm trying to do is I still share that, but I do a bookend quote. I do that and these other quotes to try to say, I'm trying to be reasonable. Anytime I sit in front of a tax attorney, enrolled into the IRS, trust officer, CPA, they're getting it all. And I'm going to explain it all. And by the way, I have an article out called Vapor on Paper about illustrations. It explains some of the things we're talking about. If you want it, just write me at thebiz@brokersalliance.com and I'll send it to you. Remember, all this stuff we're talking about is out on our landing page, all about marketing to the fiduciary community. www.brokersalliance.com/gatekeepers. Ken, let's close out our segment here because this is the bad boy issue, and we don't have time for policy loans. That expense load alone could be a show.
Sure.
Talk about expenses. Why do we print the report? And think about this, 95% of the proposals I see on a regular basis do not include the expense report.
We show them because nobody else shows them,
Exactly.
and the CPAs know they're there, and if we put it on the table, we look transparent, we are transparent, and we gain trust. And I'll tell you another thing, I looked at expense ratios on 2 different contracts, and then I started playing games with, well, what if it doesn't, when it's at 8.3, this one wins. But you get down into the 5.5, 6.5, and this one over here, just because of the way the expense loads are put in, then it pulls ahead. And guess what? The more conservative fiduciary is going to go, well, gosh, let's understate and assume the worst. This works better instead of the pie in the sky, great returns, and then the expense loads, factor off. So the expenses build relationship, build trust, and are more conservative. And you know what? When things don't go as well as you think later on, you'll protect yourself against lawsuits and complaints because you did it conservatively.
Well, I can't believe it. I can never make a statement. What is the S&P going to do? I don't know. What's equities going to do on a VUL? I don't know. But what I can know is who's got the best economic expense load chassis, so I can say at least it's going to be pretty good to buy the most efficient chassis there. Well, listen, you can watch our show and all this week's shows on our on-demand section at www.brokersalliance.com. Well, that's the Buzz on the Biz for today. You've been in the zone, the business insurance zone.
The Biz is brought to you by Brokers Alliance, a national leader in insurance products, support services, and educational workshops. When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, We're the news you can use.